Up next on the podcast is Tony Mantuano from Yolan Restaurant here in Nashville. Tony is an amazing Italian chef, probably one of the best in the country, and him and I go way back to his Spiaggia days in Chicago. I've always looked up to Tony. I think he's a very talented, amazing chef. He's been a great friend to me, and I hope you enjoy this podcast. Hello, Tony. Thanks for being with us.
Ryan, it's about time you asked me.
What took so long? Yeah.
What the hell?
Let's start out in the mid '90s of Chicago, because I want to put some of my timelines together. So, I think the first time in the '90s was so long ago for both of us. I think the first time that I had heard about you was I was working at Mango with Steve Gepetti in like '97-ish
on Wells Street.
On Wells, yeah. And he kept talking about this guy Tony that had opened up Mantuano's Mediterranean table.
Yeah.
Now, Spiaggia was before that?
Yeah, so founding chef of Spiaggia, 1984.
Jesus.
1983, our business partner at the time, Larry Levy, said, I'm going to build the best Italian restaurant in America, and I want to hire you and Kathy Mantuano to run it, but we're a year out. Would you guys go to Italy? I'll take care of all your expenses. We'll make an initial setup in a restaurant that, all the marble comes from Forte dei Marmi. We'll meet that guy. He'll set you up in a restaurant. And it worked out really great because once we worked at one restaurant and they saw that we were serious about what we're doing and very interested, then they would recommend that we go to the next place.
Yeah, that's how it always is.
That's how it always is, right. Yeah. So 1983 to 1984, we lived in Italy and worked in 3 Michelin-starred Del Pescatore and blah, blah, blah. And came back with this vision for Spiaggia, and we opened on Friday the 13th in April 13th in 1984. So that's when that happened.
Amazing.
And then we opened. Do you want me to keep going?
Let's pause right there. What were you doing before that then?
So before that, I was the chef of a restaurant at 200 East Chestnut called Pronto. And what was really unique about Pronto at the time was that, going back to 1982, no one made fresh pasta. Not in the city of Chicago, not in a restaurant. And so we made all our pasta. We had a pasta, like where you see everywhere now. There's like a section in the front of the restaurant or wherever that's visible to the guests that are making fresh pasta and drying it and hanging it or shaping it, whatever. And we were doing that in 1982.
Jesus.
And that was a busy restaurant. I mean, we were doing 500 people a day, it was
Holy
crazy.
Cow,
no, there weren't a lot of restaurants.
There wasn't, which I have on my list to get to in a minute here too, yeah.
So that's what I was doing before that. And then Kathy Mantuano, we both moved to Chicago at the same time. Basically, we met in Milwaukee.
We are from Wisconsin, right?
Wisconsin,
yes.
She says,
yes.
Yep. And she was working at a restaurant in Water Tower Place called Chestnut Street Grill. And so Larry Levy would have lunch there because he was the owner, and he would then he and Kathy developed this relationship where they could talk about a lot of stuff. And he's like, I want to open a best Italian restaurant. I'm looking for a chef. And she said, oh, by the way, I know a guy. And so that's how that happened, basically, is that we met him, or she talked to him, then I met them, and then we cooked in his home for a lot of well-known Chicagoans at the time, like Gene Siskel and Oprah Winfrey, and
Oprah when she just had the talk show though.
Just it.
Yeah, before she became Oprah Winfrey.
She was not Oprah Winfrey.
Right. Yeah, she was on the lines with Jerry Springer and Jenny Jones.
Right. And so that's how that happened, and we developed a menu and we designed the kitchen, and then we were off to Italy.
So was Spiaggia the first fine dining restaurant that you had done then?
Yeah, I think there wasn't a whole lot of opportunities to do fine dining Italian.
Right.
In fact, everyone said you're fucking crazy. Can I swear?
You could say whatever the fuck you want.
All right, fantastic. You guys are fucking crazy. This is fine dining? Why isn't this a French restaurant?
French restaurant.
No one ever heard of fine dining Italian, although it existed in Italy.
Right.
But no one knew about it. And, a lot of restaurateurs would come in once we opened the doors and said, you guys are never going to make it. You're never ever going to make it because this is an Italian. Well, it was, but it wasn't Italian American.
What people think Italian food is.
Right.
So at that time, the fine dining restaurants in Chicago, we'll say in the early 90s, was La Francais.
Yep.
Everest Room. Was that even around then?
Well, there was There was Joho was at Maxime's. And in the basement.
Right.
I'll never forget one dish she made when we went there was like 6 sunny side up quail eggs, and where there was the white of the egg was covered with caviar. It's just like, yeah. So Maxime's, Le Francais.
Yep.
What else was there?
The Alsatian chef, Louis.
Louis Sadmar.
Yeah.
I think
that might have been closed by then.
It was closed. I mean, I think they might have closed in the mid-'80s.
The Ritz-Carlton dining room, maybe.
Yep, that was a big deal then.
La Francais, John Bonchet had it. And the Gordon's.
Yeah.
Maybe. Charlie Trotter's probably wasn't even open then. He opened in 85?
87, something like that.
Yeah.
The cool thing about Charlie was that he approached me about working at Spiaggia. And he said, I want to learn about pasta. I've worked in a lot of places. I've done a lot of stuff, but I haven't really been exposed to pasta. Would you mind if I came and worked with you guys? Like, this is before people started talking about stage.
Yeah, right.
Like,
Yeah.
I'm like, yeah, sure.
It was the Wild West of the culinary industry
Totally.
back then. Yeah.
Totally.
Yeah.
And so he worked with us for a week or two.
So what did you see? What did you see in Italy? We worked with like Nadia Santini, right?
Yeah.
So what did you see there that kind of opened up your eyes to be like, oh, we're looking at Italian food the wrong way, or what did you bring back to Spiaggia and say, I got this idea?
So really with Nadia, it was she's an incredible teacher. I mean, we still send our chefs there all the time. Joy Fecci from Yolan is going there next month.
Oh, lucky dog, man.
And it was this respect for tradition, like the foods that were around them, and that's maybe a little bit different in Italy, where there's a culture where food is such a big part of it regionally. And so she would take those old regional dishes and she would replate them. And there was still the essence, the soul was there. And I'm like, yeah, this is, the inspiration should come from that, from the region, from the culture. Forget about Italian American.
Yeah.
And then there was the element of service. To this day, the Santinis are some of our best friends. We go there, we're treated like royalty. We were there last month, and it's that caring, that like they make you feel like, man, it's so great to see you. I haven't seen you. Like, sit down, like, try this. Like, we're standing in the kitchen when we first get there, and she reaches and hands us some braised pork trotter that she's been doing for, a long time, since we were there. And I don't know, just this whole, like, you feel like they're really happy I'm here. And
hospitality.
That's really the key, right? That's the key.
The key in everything. Yeah. I always talk with Matthew about, like, even before we came up with the idea for Iggy's, and we were talking about, like, maybe we should do something. And we always said, like, we want people to walk in and it feel like you're going to mom's house for Thanksgiving. And I tell this story all the time on podcasts because I think it's like the true essence of what the hospitality industry is. She greets you at the door, she takes your jacket, she finds your place on the couch, she makes sure nobody's making fun of you, she makes sure you know when the dinner's ready, and you leave and you're just like, oh man, like that's like hospitality. And I don't know if we're necessarily losing it. I feel like it went away, but I feel like it's coming back, and I feel that people that do it well.
Yeah, I think so. I think it's certainly prevalent in larger markets, and I think it's starting to. People are starting to understand that that's probably the most important thing to have your business, have your restaurant be successful. Is the food's got to be good, right? Like our chefs, but people are gonna come back if you remember them, if you know what they ordered, if you know what they had, like you
remember their name, right?
They're coming back.
Yeah, agreed.
Yeah,
agreed. We always say that people will come back for good service and a feeling the way they were treated. Over, well, the food was great, but I felt like an asshole. Absolutely. Yeah. So you had been studying Italian cuisine before this, obviously. At any point in your career, and I asked Jeff Mushu and Mark the same question, at any point did you think, like, I want to learn about ramen, or I want to learn French cuisine, or, I want to learn something about Spanish tapas? Like, was it always just, the Italy road, and that's it?
It's pretty much always it.
Yeah, why?
It's my soul, right? Like, this is my grandmother's cooking. My grandfather my grandfather and grandmother had a grocery store, and it was, their house was a few blocks away. There was a big garden. I mean, it was just part of who I am, and like I only wanted to learn about Italian. I only wanted to study Italian. To this day, I probably couldn't make a fucking ramen if my life depended on it. So, yeah, it's always been Italian.
Yeah, right on. So you came back from Italy, you opened up Spiaggia.
Yeah.
How did it go?
That was very successful from day one.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, a lot of chefs that were in town, a lot of the chefs that you mentioned, like Jean Moshe, all would come through, and they would all pay their. It was really a cool time in Chicago, right? It was like people noticed. There wasn't a whole lot of fine dining in Chicago. There wasn't any fine dining Italian, so people wanted to see what you were about. We also had the casual cafe next door, which is ingenious because if you're doing fine dining, you have a lot of shit you need to get rid of.
Right.
Repurpose like ingredients. So, yeah.
Yeah, excellent. So you were only there a couple years before you split.
I was there from '84 to '90.
Right.
And then my family and I bought not even a restaurant. Well, it was a restaurant in Kenosha, Wisconsin. And so we grew that, and that became successful. And after about a year, then we opened a restaurant on Franklin Street, right down the street from John Hogan's place called. Our place was called Tudo Posto.
Tudo Posto, right?
And his clientele was a little bit more mature.
It was Savarin was his place, right?
No, that was before. This was on Franklin. He's gonna kill me that I don't remember
Kiki's
this.
Bistro.
That's it.
Yeah.
So his clientele would be in bed by 9 o'clock, and our place was just sort of heating up. So he would walk down the street, and that's how I met him.
Yeah.
And so Tudo Posto was a lot of fun too. A lot of fun.
What were you doing there that was different from Spiaggia?
It was more pan-Mediterranean.
Okay.
And it was more approachable.
Yeah. What is pan-Mediterranean?
So, doing dishes that we had been inspired by from Spain or Greece or Morocco or southern France, and it was fun.
all the best foods.
Yes.
Yeah.
The Mediterranean, you have olive oil.
Yeah.
You have some sort of anise flavored liqueur.
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
It's very similar. That was fun, and it was really fun because it was under the L tracks, and the L would go by, and I felt very Chicago.
Yeah, extremely Chicago. Yeah.
I don't know if you were never there, right?
You're predating me a little bit. Yeah.
Yeah.
You're predating. Oh, in Chicago, you mean, or?
Yeah.
Yeah, I was there once or twice, I think. Yeah. I'm trying to piece the timeline together from like doing some internet research, and you type in your name to Google, and there's 700 pages of everything that you've done in the last 10 years, but you can't really find too much of that. So, Tudo Posto turned into...
Tudo Posto was there from '91 until we ran into an evil landlord who decided that the rent we were paying was only half of what he wanted.
Yeah, sounds about right.
Those stories,
it sounds about right, yeah.
And so then we opened a similar restaurant called Mantuano Mediterranean Table. That was in the NBC
Tower, right?
And that was 96.
Correct, yes.
And so 96 through 2000. And that was an interesting project. That was an example of really having. This is an important lesson for people out there. It's like, if you don't like your partners when you first meet them, you're really not going to like them a year or two into the project. And you spend that much time with someone, you should like them. You're spending more time with them than people that you're really close to or love. So, and that was a really bad partnership. That's one of them between table and ended up in a courtroom. It was a valuable lesson.
They all are.
And I try to, we've mentored a lot of people, and I try to tell them, like, pick your partners, man. Get the right deal. Don't be a slave to the landlord, slave to rent. Right. Make a deal that's good for you.
Right. The hardest thing that we had to do during the process of I had never raised money for anything. I worked at some restaurants. I've been the chef partner of a place or two, and I've always come in towards the end of construction. Hey, it's time to build the kitchen. What do you want? I've never been on this front end of it, so I'm just kind of winging it. The hardest thing to do is like when someone's offering you a bunch of money to turn it away because they're a dickhead.
Yeah.
And you're like, fuck, man, I really need this $300,000, but I don't ever want to talk to this person ever again in my life. opposed to for the next 10 years.
Right.
You know, this is going to be a nightmare situation.
Right. And even though you're raising money, they don't have any say so.
No, they don't have anything, but still
they're an asshole.
They're still an asshole.
And they're still going to come in.
Yeah.
And they're going to still say, why don't you have a burger on the menu?
Cause problems. Yeah. Right.
So.
But after that, you went back to Spiaggia.
Yeah. So probably 2000. I had lunch one day with Larry Levy, and he's like, "Hey, how's it going? I really need someone to take Spiaggia over because Paul Bartolotta at the time was leaving, and Michael White was there as well." And I'm like, "Yeah, let's do it." So 2000 to 2000. When did I leave? 19. Yeah,
it's a long run.
That was a good run.
Yeah,
we produced a lot of really talented people.
Definitely.
And that's the thing that's the most rewarding for me, is to see how successful Joe Flan is, or Sarah Gruen, or Missy Robbins.
Yeah.
I mean, Missy's like
crushing.
Yeah. And so
but they're all great people, though.
They're all wonderful.
Which is a testament to like what. So here's something that I found that Joe said. He said, Tony instills in the staff to push harder and to make everything shine more. So he kind of like in terms of like you really allowed them to kind of come into their own. I think I'm at that point where I want to help start mentoring people a little bit more than just giving them recipes and helping them out. And one thing I wanted to ask you is like, at what point in your career did that sort of shift where you kind of pull back a little bit from the day-to-day operations and you allow the chefs running the restaurant to kind of like sort of make their own mistakes but mentor them in setting up? Like when did that sort of like click over?
You just had this vision in my head, like I don't want to be like one of these old guys who's doing the same fucking dishes 34 years later, and that's it.
Great example.
I didn't want to be that guy.
Yeah.
And I just needed that young voice, kept me young, and having those young chefs come in, there had to be the trust first, right? Like you had to understand what Spiaggia was about. You had to understand what we were trying to do. And once you did, and you could fit your style within that.
Correct.
And that's like when Joe Flan went to Del Pescatore, he's like, the minute I walked in there, I'm like, oh, I get it. I know what you're trying to do.
It makes sense, right? Yeah,
it makes sense. So I just didn't want to be the old guy doing the same dishes over and over.
Right.
And the best part of my job really is mentoring young people, but also being able to interact with them on a daily basis and learn from them. Like I learn a lot from Joe. I learn a lot from Sarah and Missy. Like they still teach me, and I'm receptive to. I've been receptive to some of the things they thought about.
So you think, like you said, here's the umbrella, and you can kind of work inside this umbrella. Obviously, we're an Italian restaurant. We're not going to be serving sushi or burritos,
right?
So if you can work inside this, so inside of that umbrella, like the problems that I struggle with sometimes is presenting that umbrella and then having them kind of work their own style and understanding that this is their style and I have my style, even though it's under the umbrella, and it not really kind of like jiving with the way that I see it. Like, do you just kind of like let go of all that and kind of like let it naturally happen, or?
No, I don't think you can ever let go of it. You just have to continuously guide
and coax. Yeah.
Coax. I mean, there have been a couple chefs who like started to do stuff. I won't mention any names, but I'm like, you know what, you're off. You're going down a road. Like you can do that when you have your own joint.
Yeah, right.
This is the umbrella. This is where you got it.
It's not a new Nordic cuisine restaurant.
No sushi, but we call it crudo.
Right.
But that's just it. I mean, I get so excited when the light bulb goes off in Sarah's brain or Joe's brain or Miss. Like they're like, yeah, I get it now. And then they've gone on and done their restaurants, and I can see like the influence on them and what they're doing.
Yeah, that's got to be such a satisfactory thing to see. And I've been a chef since 2005, and I have a couple guys. But every once in a while, someone will text me or call me and be like, "Hey, I know I was a huge dickhead, and after 13 years from working for you 13 years ago, I finally understand what you're trying to do, and I appreciate it now." I'm like, finally, some fucking respect around here, you know? So, like in that position, I mean, you produced some amazing, restaurateurs and chefs now, like taking a step back and looking at that, like it's gotta feel good.
It's the most satisfying thing.
It's gotta be.
At this point in my career,
Yeah.
that is it. I mean, I spend more time in mentoring. I spend more time in the dining room talking to our guests than I do anything else. So I give them the ropes. This is where you can go. This is where you can travel. You can't go outside, and they get it, and they get into it. Like Joey at Yolan right now, it's like he's never been to Italy before. And he's cooking Italian food at a pretty high level.
Very high level, right?
And he does a lot of research on his own, and that's so inspiring. Like, he's on the internet all the time. Like, have you ever heard of this dish from Lombardia? Like, wow, no, I haven't. Tell me about it.
Yeah, right.
And so now for him to be able to go there next month, it's just like finishing skills.
So I was just gonna say it's like getting the master's degree.
Getting a master's degree,
yeah. How important do you think that is? Like, it has to, for me, when you do something like that, going to stage in Europe, it has to be the master's finishing school. You have to have an understanding of X, Y, and Z, and then that goes and fills in a lot of the holes or pieces of the puzzle that you're kind of missing.
Oh, you're absolutely.
Yeah.
And honestly, you have to do it. If you don't do it, you're missing out. Right? You're not going to become great. I think that's going to help you realize where you fit in it. Right? Like, this is where I want to go with this, and I've seen this, I've seen that, and I think my style can go. Yeah, I think it's important.
It's hard to explain to somebody, like, this is what's going to happen when you go there. You're going to see, like, it's hard to explain that the little pieces of your style or your thought process that you're missing, you're going to get everything when you go there. And even when you're there, you don't understand it. For me, it was always when I came back, like a month or two later, these things would start to resonate with me, and these techniques that I saw, or things that ingredients of proper care for certain things, the delicate care of the European lifestyle, they would start to resonate. But while I was in it, I didn't understand. Like, I never was, oh my God, I'm learning so much. It was just like, you're taking in, like that one side of your brain is turned off, and you're just accepting all this information. And then I would still tap into that side every once in a while and find all these things that have changed,
And then you don't realize it till you get back.
100%.
And then it becomes very clear.
Right. And then you almost look back and be like, oh fuck, I didn't even realize like how much I didn't know, or I can't believe that I was that cook or that person. I think it's going to be good for him as like on a personal level too. Just go and check it out and like grow as a person, and then come back and be able to share with the team.
Yeah, man, that's cool. He still has relatives in Emilia-Romagna that he's never met before.
Serious?
Yeah, I mean, he's gonna go. I said your life is gonna change.
Yeah,
you know
definitely.
that.
Yeah.
So I think the one thing that people fuck up more than anything in Italian cooking is risotto. Like, people don't know how to make risotto in this country.
How do you make risotto?
Broadly speaking.
Okay. Right.
There are many exceptions to the rule, right? But you got to start with the right rice, right? We prefer Canaroli,
of course,
Violone Nano, either one.
Yep.
And it has to have a little chew to it, much like pastas out there. The risotto. And also, don't make it look like fucking pilaf.
You're right.
Like, it's gotta be like,
it's gotta be flat.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
I mean,
I know.
Yeah.
See, I still think though, the risotto that I cook would be I think it's very al dente, and I still think it'd be a little bit overcooked for you. I still think it's like, oh fuck.
It's so funny when at Spiaggia when there would be we do tastings with possible new sous chefs or whatever, and Joe Flam would look at their menu and they'd have risotto on it. It was like,
there we go.
So you do not want to cook risotto.
Let me give you a piece of advice.
Do not cook risotto for Tony Mantuano.
Yeah. That's funny. What do Americans? What are we missing about Italian cuisine, and where did like American Italian cuisine come in? How did it get so far apart from each other? It's hot here.
You can control that with a button. Look at that. I think that there's such a connection to your heritage if your grandparents or parents or uncle, whatever, came from Italy, like, and then they developed this style of cooking Italian American, and so you're connected to that because that's what you grew up with, right? So in order to really understand Italian food and authentic, that's a weird word to use because everyone uses it, even fucking Alberg, but it's
when you hear your family. Hashtag
Hospitaliano.
That's great.
So But here's the thing is it's changed because now, like in 1984, going to the dining room at Spiaggia. How many of you have been to Italy before? Raise your hand. Not a whole lot.
Right.
And now in Nashville at Yolan, most of our guests have been to Italy before. Mm-hmm. And they understand it. And they're like, oh yeah, I get it. I get that this is the risotto.
Right.
And so there's that, it's sort of, the emotional connection to their ancestors here in Italian-American cooking, and then actually the modern Italian cooking, which, by the way, has changed in Italy too. Like what chefs are doing in Italy today is different than what chefs were doing 34 years ago.
Well, of course, yeah. The influence that Ferran Adria had on the culinary industry as a whole, and you look at someone like Cracco Peck or Carlo Cracco or Massimo. For those guys, I know Massimo. I don't know what Carlo's background is, but is it Italian food that they're doing? Are they cooking Italian food?
If you stop moving forward, then you're dead.
Yeah, good point. Yeah, well said.
So you have to keep pushing, and Massimo does it. There's a lot of great chefs. Mm-hmm. Nico Romito, I don't know if you know who he is or not, but he has a restaurant in Abruzzo that's beautiful.
What's the name of it?
It's called Reale.
Yeah.
And then he has one in the Galleria Milano called Spazio, which means space. Mm-hmm. I think what he does is amazing. So, and of course Nadia.
Good, Nadia's always good.
Yeah. La Nadia, as they call it in Italy, the Nadia.
Yeah. So. What are some of your favorite regions of Italy and why? Oh, that's the two-part question.
Yep.
What region do you cook from, or do you pull from everywhere? And then if you were going to say, if I'm like, hey, me and Preston are going to Italy, what region should we go to?
Interesting. The most underrated place that people think of, or that people don't really understand Milan. Like Milan is such incredible cooking. Like Gualtiero Marchese put like northern Italy
on the fucking map, dude. Like the iconic dish of the gold leaf saffron risotto.
Yeah.
Everybody knows that dish. Everybody.
First Michelin star?
Yeah.
In Italy? Ever?
Everybody knows that.
Everyone knows that dish, right?
It's just like royalty in Italy, or like it's like a household. It's like Kleenex. It's like a household name. It's gotta be, right?
It sure is.
Yeah, but you show that dish, and I guarantee you, 8 out of 10 chefs are gonna be like, yeah, I know that.
Yeah,
right. Yeah.
Just like if you do the olives,
Yeah, same thing. Yeah.
Yeah, you're the only guy I know who's ever worked at LB, by the way.
I never worked there.
No, you did.
No, I didn't stage there. No.
Oh, you did.
No. I was at. I went to all of them, but there. I was at Barisategui.
Oh, that's right.
I was at Con Roca.
Yeah.
I was at La Broche. I was at Alchimia, and then I worked at a tapas bar on the island of Minorca.
Because El Bulli didn't exist.
El Bulli was around. I wasn't interested in it, and then I wanted to get the first time I went to Spain, I found Sergio Rocks who spoke English. El Bulli, when I was there, they were on an off season, so they weren't. I was gonna go work there, but they were on an off season. I had tried to work there many times.
Yeah.
I got to La Broche. Sergio spoke English. Had a place for me to live, so that was kind of. And this was before the internet. I faxed him my resume.
Sure.
So I wanted to go back. I wanted to go work in France. And I talked to Thomas when I was leaving the French Culinary. I said, hey, I want to work in France. I think it's an amazing idea. Let me know if you need some help. I can get you in these places. And it was like Lucas Cartone and, the old place. And I did that a lot of France area. I didn't need to do that. And I looked at the cuisine. I was like, no, if I'm going to go to France, I want to do Michel Braque, Guy Savoy, Marc Benoît. What are the other places? Pierre Garnier. These are the guys. These are the dogs I want to go after. I want to learn French cuisine, but like this new kind of thing they're doing. Yeah. So I faxed, or a little bit of email. There was some email.
Was there?
Email was just like, it was still a weird thing. For me, it was a super weird thing. So I faxed a lot of my resumes, and I emailed it to all these, every French chef that I could possibly think of that was young and doing new things. Nobody messaged me back. I think Michel Braque was the only person that said oh, we're full. Sorry, we're full. So I was like, okay, well, what the fuck am I going to do? And I didn't want to go to one of these classic places, Bocuse or Pierre Orsi. Yeah. That's what Thomas was kind of suggesting. Oh, these are the places, And Banché the same way. I get you into Orsi anytime, and I'm like, nah, that's okay. So my friend, Christian Ekman, who actually works for Let Us Entertain You, and we worked at La Francais together, he was at Arzak. And he's like, hey man, you should. This was kind of like El Bulli was kind of coming into its own, like 2002. Everybody knew about it. I knew what they were doing, but I kind of wasn't interested in because I was so engulfed in like French cuisine.
Yeah.
And Thomas, we really weren't paying any attention to that. Michel Bras' book had just come out, and I was like, this is it. So Christian's like, hey, you should come to Spain. These guys are doing fucking crazy shit, and they're all like super welcoming, and this is not like an arrogant thing in France. And I was like, okay. I was like, well, whatever. So I got a couple magazines, and Anya von Brazik had just wrote this huge like dissertation of French cuisine, and she had named all these El Bulli and Mugaritz and Sergio Rolla and Danny Garcia and all these restaurants that were doing all this crazy stuff. Yeah. So I was like, okay, well, this seems interesting. Same thing. I wrote this letter, had a friend translate in Spanish. My mom speaks Spanish, so she helped to translate a little bit. I sent it out, and I'm like, none of these guys, maybe I'll move to New York and do something else, I don't know. And then like everybody messaged me back. El Bulli also, hey, we're on an off season, but if you want to come these months. Wow. Everybody, and Sergi wrote back in English. Wow. And he's like, hey, we'd love to, hey amigo, we'd love to have you, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, holy shit. So that's kind of different. That's different. I was like, wow, this is like warm and welcoming, and I was really shitting in my pants. I was moving to Europe. I didn't speak French, and I didn't speak Spanish, and I had like $3,000 saved, maybe $2,000. And I bought a one-way ticket, and I showed up and I got off the plane in Spain. I took the job with Sergi. It was the most welcoming. I liked that he spoke English, and they had a place for me to live also.
How old were you?
I was 24. Wow. 24 years old. Wow. My mom was like, are you fucking crazy? Like losing her mind. Yeah. Completely losing her mind. And I had a North Face backpack, like I was, scaling the Alps, And I got off the plane, and I flew from Chicago to Miami, and then Miami to Spain, and they got Miami, hey, welcome, we're going to Spain, blah blah blah, and then they do it in Spanish, and I was like, oh shit, like they're already speaking another language. Then we land in Spain, same thing, they spoke in Spanish, blah blah blah. I was like, okay, got my things, this and that, never been out of the country before, hardly ever traveled, grabbed my bag, and I walked to customs, and it was like, turning paper in the doors, and I sat down on the bench. I filled out the paperwork, and I sat down on the bench for probably a good 45 minutes. And I was too scared to leave. Yeah. And all I had was the restaurant address on a piece of paper and Sergi's name. And I felt like, I'm just gonna hand this to the taxi cab driver, and he's gonna take me. And I sat on the fucking bench for probably about 45 minutes. I was like, okay, you can't go back that way. There's no plane. There's nowhere to go. You gotta go this way, man. And I was like, fuck, what am I doing? A huge mistake. What am I doing here? I didn't speak the language, and everybody's speaking Spanish. It was just different. Everything was different. The airport looked different. And I don't really remember much after that. It was like God's will that just lifted me off the bench, put me in the cab, and I showed up at the restaurant.
It's called courage.
Yeah, courage. Yeah, thanks. And I'm like, okay, they dropped me off at the restaurant. It was La Broche, and I saw it online, the picture. I was like, oh, fucking great. I walk up there, the door's locked. They were closed after the lunch service. It was in between. Sure. Everybody's sleeping. And I'm like, what the fuck am I going to do now? And my big bag. And one of the cleaners had saw me trying to get in, so I kind of said a little bit of stuff to him. And then the guys were in the kitchen working, and they're like, okay, that really kind of worked out, and I just slid in. But and then that was it. And I never looked back, and it was I've been on that adventure ever since. I can't stop traveling. I can't stop learning new cultures. Right. There's so much more to see,
You had the courage to move on, right?
I didn't know where it came from, though. Blind luck, the will from wanting to travel, the will from wanting to push myself to do better, and just being stupid. I have $3,000. Let's I would never do that now. No. Never.
The first time we went to Italy to work, and I say we because it was always Kathy and I that were working together. She would work in the front, and I would work in the kitchen. And somehow we missed the train, so we got on the wrong train.
Did you speak Italian by this time, or
we not really? Spoke enough.
Okay.
Not a lot.
Right.
And we got on this train, and we missed where we were supposed to get off. That's what it was. And we were going on, and then we were in one of those cars with like 6 people sitting together, and so the ticket agent, like, where's your ticket? And like, you guys aren't supposed to be on this train. And we happened to be like sitting next to this guy who spoke English, who also worked for the railroad. And like, he was pleading for us, like, to that guy to like show us some empathy. Like, we're here, we don't know where we're going. And the guy wouldn't have it, and he wanted to throw us off the train. And pretty soon, now this is our first day in Italy. Right. There was a fist fight.
No way. On the train.
On the train. Between this guy, and we're like, what
over you.
And then
we've made a horrible mistake.
This is how it's going to be. And then we actually then got off and got back to go back to our original stop, but then we had missed our connection to the guy that was going to take us to the restaurant we were going to work at. And so then it was the middle of the afternoon. In those days, everything's closed.
Everyone's sleeping.
So we're sitting on the sidewalk with our suitcases. There's no cell phones.
Yeah.
Well, there's a bar over there. Do you got a number? Maybe we can. Oh, wait, we have to get a token to use the phone. But I was like,
it was so complicated.
It was scary, right?
Yeah.
Like, but something pushed us to do it, and we're better off. And
I 100% agree.
Yeah.
Like, I feel like I've lived a very fortunate life with what the places I've got to see in the world and the things that I've got to do.
Yeah.
You know? So if me and Preston are going to Italy, where would you send us and why?
Good question. I'd want you to go to.
We've never been before.
I mean, first of all, don't try to cram.
Always
7 cities, and
if you're listening, that is the best advice you could possibly give. If you're going to go to a country and you're going to be there a week, 2 cities max.
That's it.
Because otherwise, you're just packing, getting on planes, and unpacking.
Forget it.
Yeah.
Not worth it. You're not going to learn anything. You're going to be stressed out.
Right.
Like, I got to pack. I got to do this. So, I really think people should go to Milan. I think there's so much exciting things happening in Milan. I think it's a very modern city. It's a very industrial city. It doesn't rely on tourism. It relies on the people that live there to frequent the restaurants. So the cooking is at a very high level. It's really a great city.
But is there a cuisine in Milan?
Yeah. I mean, there's, Lombardian.
Oh, Lombardy. Yeah. Okay. Right. Yeah.
But then there's chefs that are pushing it. There's a place called Tripa. I don't know if you heard of this place, but these guys are young, and they're cooking, tripe, basically, right? This is the name of their restaurant. And, I had a dish there last time where deep fried tripe, like, I'm not sure how they did it, if they, but it was so crispy and tender, like you didn't think you were eating tripe, So, like, there's people doing really great things there. I think you have to see Rome.
We have to see Rome.
There's so many great restaurants in Rome as well.
Well, there's so many great dishes that kind of encompass Italian food for what Americans kind of know.
That's right.
The easy dishes.
Yeah.
And every time I gravitate towards Italy, I think I'm always cooking out of Rome. I don't know. Especially the pastas. This is so comforting.
Yeah. Cacio e pepe.
Carbonara. Yeah.
Those are the dishes that almost every American can relate to. But also some of the most bastardized dishes.
The flip side to that,
right. Like, what are you doing putting onions in there? What are you doing putting peas? Like,
peas and cream?
Like, stop.
Where is this?
This is my carbonara. Fuck you. You don't know what carbonara is.
Food and Wine. Food and Wine put out, I don't know if it was an article or a recipe, and it was cream and carbonara pasta, and I just commented, "I'm calling the police." I was like, "What is this, man?" I think they might have been trolling. I'm not sure what that was, man.
But look, like, you can do whatever you want.
100%.
But don't call it carbonara.
Right.
Call it something else.
Yeah.
Call it, like,
creamy carbonara.
That's it. Or creamy bullshit.
Right.
Yeah. So Rome is really great. I think Milan's really great. I think you have to go to Parma, right? You got to see where prosciutto di Parma, Parmigiano Reggiano, the home, the balsamic vinegar.
Yes.
And then Florence. Florence is a really walkable city, right? Like, you can stay anywhere in that city, and you can walk, and in 10 or 15 minutes you're wherever you want to be, and the market's incredible, and so, I'm not really shedding any light on where you should go.
Yeah, thanks.
Because I love it all. But God, don't miss it. Don't miss Milan. Really don't miss it.
Now, the southern Italy, obviously this is a stupid statement. The cooking is different in the south and north. Like, what do you like? Do you gravitate towards one or the other? Or?
Yeah, I think if I cook at home, it's usually cooking from the south. My grandparents came from Calabria. So
great chilies, I've heard. Yeah.
Very world famous chilies. So that's again my soul food, right? So I love to go to Calabria. I think it's a little more rustic, it's a little more crazy, not really wonderful places to stay, but the food's pretty incredible. The seafood's incredible. An underrated place too. Yeah. But you can't, if you want fancy, it's not Calabria. So.
But it's like how much fine dining do you go and eat when you're there? I mean, obviously you're looking at it through a different lens because you've been back and forth a billion times. So
less and less.
Yeah.
Less and less because as you get older, you don't always want to eat that way anymore.
It's too much. Man.
It's too much.
I can't eat a 3-hour meal anymore.
No.
Yeah.
And we struggle with that at Yolan. It's like, it's constantly like a 5-course. They should not be here longer than an hour and 45 minutes.
That's what I've always said. Hour 45 minutes is the sweet spot.
Done.
Yeah.
8-course, okay, we'll give you 2.5 hours. But if it starts dragging on, it's not a good experience.
Yeah. You get
People
tired.
aren't going to come back. And it's honestly something we have to measure every single day. Like we check how long a table's been there. And sometimes it takes longer because people are enjoying themselves or
chatting.
Yeah. But it's really on our radar right now to try to get that. I've heard of restaurants that say, do you want a 1.5 hour experience? Do you want to? But I don't know if that really
the time limit. Yeah, I don't know how long I want to be here for. If I'm having a good time.
Exactly.
Excuse me, your time limit's up.
Do you know how much time you want to spend in the restaurant?
I don't know. No idea.
No.
Could be 45 minutes.
Yeah. And if you're in New York, they'll kick you out.
They'll kick you out. Right. Yeah. So let's look. You brought up Yolan. So how did you get to Nashville? You left Spiaggia in 2019.
We did. We left in 2019, and we decided we wanted to live in Italy. So Kathy and I moved to Milan, and God, it's like this is just a lesson in how you never burn a bridge. So in 1984, when Spiaggia was being built, there was a young kid named Mark Nauer. I don't know if you know him or not, but he was really young, and he was doing a lot of the drawings, engineering drawings, and he wasn't the architect, but he was working for the architectural firm. Got to know him then. And then we redid Spiaggia completely in maybe, 2010 or 12. And he did the redesign. He did everything. When we opened our restaurant Tutto Posto, he's the architect who did that. And then, when we were in Milan, he's like, what are you guys doing? I hear you left Spiaggia. What's going on? I'm like, yeah, we're just enjoying life right now. And he's like, I really want you to meet these guys. And I know Mark really well. He's done like Gibson's and Gibson's Italia.
Oh, wow.
And he's like big box type of architect. And but he knew these guys, Joel Pizzuti from, and they live in Columbus, Ohio, and they were building a hotel on KVB and 4th called the Joseph Hotel. Joel Pizzuti named it after his grandfather, and they wanted to open, according to Mark, the best Italian restaurant in these parts. And they asked Mark, who they had worked with before on something, I don't remember what, but maybe another hotel that they have in Columbus, but because they're not restaurant people at all. And who should we talk to? And Mark's like, you should talk to Tony and Kathy. I'm like, first of all, I'm not going to move to Nashville. I'm pretty happy.
Yeah, right.
Like,
from Milan to Nashville, said no one ever.
And then I met Joel, we talked, and I'm like, this dude's pretty cool. And then he says, why don't you come to Columbus? I'm like, I'm not going to go to Columbus.
Whoa, you need to go up tier. Right?
Because that's where they reside, right? That's where their headquarters are.
Yeah.
And so
we should check out Detroit while we're at it, too.
So I went and I liked them. And I had no intention of doing this project.
Just took the meeting, right?
Just took the meeting. Yeah. Why the hell not?
Yeah.
And I liked him, and I got back and I said to Kathy, you should meet these guys. And so then she met them, and she's sort of the barometer of like, are these good people or not for me?
Right.
And she's like, yeah, these are really cool people. And so we said, okay, let's leave Milan and
pack the bags. We're heading to Nashville.
Still.
Now, were you visiting Nashville? Did you know where it was?
Where Nashville was?
Well, yeah. I mean, I don't know. maybe we could edit this out, but when I moved to Nashville, I didn't even know where the fuck it was. Like, I knew where it was, I knew I've heard of it, but I had no interest in ever, like, one day I'm going to move to Nashville, and it was like, no. I don't like country music, so it wasn't like a city that I needed to go visit. If you would have said, oh, you're going to be living in Vegas over Nashville, I'd be like, yeah, that seems a little bit more my style, rock climbing, you know.
Yeah, how did you get here? What was it, Catbird Seat?
Catbird. So I got back from traveling. You know, I left Tavernita and just took a hiatus to try to find myself again. And then I was working. So funny story is I linked up with Mark because I wanted to, you know, really dive into pastas, and, you know, Mark is Mark, you know.
Mark's Mark.
And the whole plan was I was going to spend the majority of that time in Italy. So I didn't know how long. I expected to be on the road when I left Tavernita, to be on the road for a year. And I had like budgeted for a year, and I was like, I want to take a break. I knew taking a sidestep in Chicago was not going to fix the problems that I was having of, you know, being beat down and not wanting to cook anymore and being depressed. So I said, I'm going to quit. I'm going to become a stagiaire, a line cook again. And if they want me to do dishes, I'll do dishes. And I just want to go and work with chefs that I could start a conversation with. Yeah. And Dan Barber was on that list, Danielle, and Mark Vetri. I was like, fuck, I've always loved Mark Vetri.
Yeah.
And I wanted to go make pizzas with him. You know, I just wanted to learn how to make pizza. So I met Mark, and we have all this stuff in common, jiu-jitsu and music and, you know, just being weird and, you know, goofy. And I said, you know, my plan is to leave here, and I want to go to Italy, and I want to spend like a whole year. And he's like, dude, I got you, man. You'll start at the north. You can work your way all the way down. And I had talked to Massimo a couple times, and he was like ready for me. And, you know, some friends had helped me vouch for me. And he's like, dude, anytime you want. And I was going to go all the way down south. Donnie Medea had me set up in Puglia. He's like, you got to go to this place and this place. And I was talking to the chef in Puglia, and it was all set.
Nice.
And then I went to Noma, and I started doing the fermentation, and I was like, I fucking don't even know what these people are talking about. I've been cooking for a long time, and this is like a new language. So I stayed a little longer, and then they said, we're going to Japan, you have to come with us. And I was like, fuck, man.
Of course you do.
I was like, okay, like, do I go to Italy and do what I want to do, or do I go open up Noma Japan with the team from Noma? And I was like, it was a really hard decision. And I said, okay, what I'm going to do is I'll go to Japan, and then I'll come back from Japan. I'll just go to Italy, and I'll just pick where I left off. So it's kind of only like taking like a 3-month sidestep. So I got to Japan, and I was like, oh, I'm in Asia. Oh, Vietnam's right there. Oh, Bangkok? Like China? Macau? Holy shit. And I just was like, well, I'll just stay here.
Yeah.
And I never went back. So that whole was kind of scrapped, you know? I don't know. Oh, how I got to Nashville. Yeah. So the roundabout way. So when I came back from traveling, I moved back to Chicago. I was doing some pop-ups, and I realized like it's not a good idea to stay here. Like I had changed so much as a person, and I was linked up with the old friends that I used to run with, and they were the same people talking about the same bullshit, talking the same problems, going to the same bars. And I was like, listen, if you stay here, everything you did in the last 2 years, all this growth and rebirth and like all this like positive energy, it's just going to get wiped out, and you're going to be put through the meat grinder, and you're going to be back where you were in 2013.
Oh, you're right. Good
so
observation.
I said, like, you got to go, man.
Yeah.
You got to go. And I started looking for a job. And the Catbird seat came available. I talked to Trevor, and I just thought it was a really cool 20 seats, cooking for people, talking to people. It's like, I love talking to people. Yeah. And I love cooking. This is perfect, you know? And then I was talking to Matthew about coming in, and this was like our opportunity. Me and Matthew had talked for a long time opening a restaurant together. And this was our opportunity to kind of like work together as like beverage guy, chef. And they offered me to come down and do tasting, and I was like, okay. Got on a plane and flew down here, and I was like, well, fuck it. And that was it. I always thought like, I lived in every major city around the world. Nashville's not that hard. I got here, I was like, oh shit, you know? So 2016 to now, it's really grown a lot, and I like it now. When I first got here, I was like, I don't know. Yeah. But it's changed a lot. It's grown on me. I met a really good group of friends that are not directly involved in the culinary world. I got my girl. Yeah. So things in their life. I think I've kind of settled down a lot as a person. I think the pandemic had a lot to do with that. Put a lot of things in perspective. That's kind of how I got here. Yeah. I would have never guessed in a million years I'd be living in Nashville.
So your experience at Catbird Seat, 100% great, positive. the ending and all that? I'm just interviewing you now, sorry.
Yeah, it was a good.
And if it's off limits, then.
Yeah, no, it was a good experience to really find myself in like being in front of guests and talking to guests and being with my brother. I think that was like an important synergy for us, you know. And I think it was the best step in the next direction of, you know, taking 2 years off of life and, you know, doing all these crazy things around the world, and then like having all these ideas and being able to plug in somewhere. Like it wasn't a concept. It wasn't like, all right, you have to cook this type of food. It was whatever we wanted to do. Yeah. So I think it was like a great outlet. I think it had a time limit on it from the hours that we were working. Yeah. It was a grind. It was like putting on a Broadway show and cooking at the same time. And I'd wake up on Sunday mornings just drooling on myself because I couldn't keep a thought in my head. My brain was melted. So it took a lot out of us. Yeah. And then, we decided to leave, and, it wasn't really our decision. Yeah. But it is what it is. And it put us on this better road. And 2019 was like a hard year. We had very little time to kind of like, they kind of said, you know, here, we bring in new chefs and you guys are out. That's basically what had happened. So it was like a scramble to kind of figure out, and I went back to Asia just because I just needed to clear my head, and I was doing yoga and jiu-jitsu in the jungle, and it was like a great escape. After like 3 years of grinding away, it was like taking 6 months off was like a really smart thing. Good. And I came back, and I was here again. I don't know what I want to do. So I was kind of like doing little consulting things, helping friends out. I helped Mark in Vegas. I helped Kevin Fink in Austin. I was like a hired gun of like friends that needed help, and they needed like another chef that they can count on. Yeah. And then this company in Bali called me that Will Goldfarb actually hooked me up with, a pastry chef in Bali. He kind of like put me, and he's like, hey, these guys, I want you to meet my business partner. He has this beach club, and they want a chef to kind of come in and revamp things. And I was like, well, that seems like an easy job. The beach in Bali, they signed me up. Yeah. So January 2020, I flew out to Indonesia to live for a year. It was a year contract. And then April 2020, I flew back and I turned my house into like an underground dinner pop-up because I still own a house in East Nashville. Yeah. And I started working on the idea for what originally was called Semolina, which is now called Iggy's. And that's kind of like, I was like, well, I'm here. I'm back in Nashville. This pandemic's not going anywhere. Yeah. So I started, I think you and I sat down early on, and I was like, hey, I got this idea. I don't know what to do. And he gave me some great advice, and every day I just kind of woke up and I worked a little bit on it. Yeah. And then I get frustrated, overwhelmed. I'd be like, I can't do this. Yeah. And I wake up the next day, I was like, hey, come on, little by little, and it just kind of grew. And I remember the first time I spent money on it was like I got lawyers. I spent my own money. I was like, well, you know, I'm out fucking 10 grand, whatever. I'm lawyer, whatever. It's my own money. But then when I got investors' money and I started spending it, and then when I wrote the check for the kitchen equipment, and I was like, oh, there's no turning back. Like, this isn't... You're in. There's absolutely no turning. You better fucking figure this out. Yeah. Man. And it's been an interesting ride, you know?
So who has really helped you through this process? Like, did you find some sort of experienced business person that did this before? Some sort of investor that helped guide you? Like, who helped you get to the point? Because it's really hard opening a restaurant. It's like, if you don't have someone you can talk to all the time... Like who? I mean, you don't have to say the name or anything.
No, yeah, I'll be more than happy. Joe Maglione was the guy that I met him through a mutual friend in Copenhagen, and we had a coffee. I was on vacation there in like 2018, and we had a coffee. What was just supposed to be like a coffee date turned out to be like, well, let's go get a glass of wine. He's an amazing fucking person. He helped me do the formula, the performer, the business model, and he's like, this is what you need. You need to have a deck and a financials, and then you start shopping this around. That's so right. Him and I flew to New York sometimes, and him and I would just work on it. It's like, okay, how much are you spending in chemicals a week? You know, okay, we'll put this into the system. How much is, okay, I need a schedule. Like, do you think you're gonna be able for lunch? And I wrote a schedule with, you know, fake numbers sort of, and it would spit this number out. And he's like, okay, here's the business model. So he was the first one that like, I'm gonna help you, and I don't want anything in return. Yeah. And then I had my friend Abby in Chicago. She did the deck for me. Yeah. She put a whole bunch of pretty pictures together with a menu, and you know, my picture and Matthew's picture, and this is what we want to do, and this is the idea. And I had this to kind of shop around. Now,
that's an important lesson for people. Like someone
I didn't even know I needed that.
You didn't, and a lot of chefs don't.
I have no idea, right?
But you found this person who actually told you, I don't want anything. I just want to see you be successful.
I want to help you. Right.
I want to help you. That's really important.
It's an important friend.
You got to have those people.
Yes.
If you don't have those people, you're going to fail.
Correct.
Anyway.
Absolutely. I gave him 2 points in the restaurant because he's helped me so much. It's like, you know, after that, it's talking to people like you, Mark. But it was like every friend gave me some sort of different advice. And then when I realized, like, it's funny when you ask someone for advice, they never really give you the answer you're looking for. You want somebody to say, Ryan, this is what you have to do, and this is how you should do it, and this is how you got to do it. But when people give you advice, it's not that, especially when it's good advice. They make you think about what you're doing.
Yeah.
They make you did that to me, and I was like, fuck, man, just tell me the answer. But I went home and I thought about what you said, and like, you should approach it this way, or think about this, or you're going about it the wrong way. Like, you pull away a little bit. And Mark Vetri, Kevin Fink, Jeff Mishu, Jenner in Chicago, a great source of kind of like bouncing ideas. My friend Sarah Payton, who just opened a bar in New York, she has like a PR background. Those are the people that I bounce ideas off of. But what I realize is each one's giving me different advice. So when I needed like the philosophy, just, you know, go to a bank and borrow some money and get a hammer and build the bar yourself, I'd go to Mark. I'd be like, okay, what is the philosophy advice that I need? When I needed like strict numbers on like brass tacks of like cut and dry numbers, I go to Kevin because he's very analytical. He's good with the numbers. When I needed the advice of, you know, how the restaurant going to feel and the feeling people want, to go to Sarah because she's got that kind of like cerebral kind of like idea, and I had all these amazing people around me. And what I really realized of myself is, you know, you work so hard to keep these relationships going. I'm a really good person of like randomly texting people, hey, I'm thinking about you, what's going on, blah, blah, blah. And, you know, my partner Angie, she says it all the time, like, it's your time now. All these people are coming to you and because they want to help you.
Yeah.
You know, it's my time.
Yeah.
Your friends are there for you. You have all these amazing people around you that are giving you the most amazing advice because you built this.
You did.
You know, and it feels good when I needed something. I had not 1, 2, I had 10 people to go to.
That's great.
That were like welcome with open arms of like, oh man, this is so amazing. And it's just a really, it's. I don't know if I'll ever do this again, man. Like, you know,
you
like,
say that now.
I say that. I just kidding. But like when I was in it, like I thought I knew a lot. I don't know shit. You know, especially everything up into construction. Like now that construction's going on, now it's like, okay, like there's still going to be some curveballs here, but like everything, operating agreements, lawyers, percentages of points, and how that's diluted, the dilution. This, that, it's like, fuck, man.
The payback schedule.
Schedule. I was really bad at selling myself.
Yeah.
And I'd be like, oh, you know, I'm opening a restaurant with my brother, and, you know, we hope it's going to be successful. People are like, later, dude. You know, and after, you know, people slamming the door in my face and like hanging up on me, I got to get out there and sell the idea.
Yeah.
You know, sell some sort of like, this is going to be the best restaurant. It's going to be awesome. We have this, we have that, and get these people excited. Yeah. And then people start writing checks, you know.
And don't you think like the worst place to get money is a bank to open a restaurant?
They won't even give it to you.
They won't give it to you.
They won't give it to you.
I mean, you don't want to be beholden to them, right?
No, absolutely not.
Raise the money.
Right.
It's not that hard if you're really good. It's a skill you may not have, like you were saying, but so many people have done it. Why couldn't you?
Yeah, you know, I look at some people like, how do you have 3 restaurants? I don't even have 1. How did you do this, man? You know. Right. But when you opened your restaurant, what was, I mean, back in 1985, I mean, Mark tells me stories of, oh, my dad gave me $20 and I built the bar and we did all this stuff and I opened up Vetri, you know, for $100,000. Like, what do you need $1 million for, Ryan? I'm like, what fucking century do you live in, man? Like,
he's a hands-on guy, though.
Like, extremely. Like, I like, Brad Daniels, another guy, works for him. Like, these guys are like, Brad was out there with like a hammer, like knocking down walls. Like, I'm not that guy.
No.
You need a funny meme? I'm your guy. You know, I'm not gonna build a bar.
Yeah.
You know, like, I hats off to them. You know, I wish I knew something about construction, but I don't.
Yeah, well, you know, get in with the right people, like we've been talking about, really, and just get the right advice. Right. And you know, people believe in you. You'll find the people that'll believe in you as long as you do your due diligence, right? And you like clear. There's no blind spots, right? This is what we're gonna do. This is how we're gonna make our money. This is what we're going to charge. This is our average check. This is when you're going to get paid back.
Right.
You're going to get paid back first, and then we're going to split it.
We're going to split everything. Yeah, basically.
Yeah, make it attractive to them.
Right.
And
that's what we did. So I changed the model halfway through, and it's 100% payback with like 5% for inflation. We don't get anything till that. The percentage split a little bit more. It's very investor friendly. And once I did that, I was like, money was falling from the sky. I was like, fuck, man. But in 1985, what was owning a restaurant back then? What was that like?
Well, I mean, I think I had a really good partnership. I mean, this is when Levy Restaurants had 3 restaurants, and they didn't have any stadiums. And, we just hit it off with Larry. And, I mean, he's the one who raised all the money. And we just delivered. And Spiaggia existed for him because it allowed him to take people that he wanted to, do the stadium deal or the entertainment complex. Like, he would entertain them at Spiaggia. And it's like, what if we can do this? We can probably do your stadium because,
Right.
And so that, I think Spiaggia existed in 1984 to allow the incredible growth that Levy Restaurants experienced. I think we were the foundation for that. And I think most people some begrudgingly will admit that, Spiaggia did exist and was responsible for a lot of the growth for Levy Restaurants. Now they're like, whatever, a $3-4 billion a year company, and they have a handful of restaurants.
Right.
And that's not their business. So I think they just bought into Boca Group now.
Did they really?
And
Jesus Christ, man.
Because we all left, right? Like, I'm gone, Joe's gone, all of those chefs, all the talent, everyone left the company. So you want to do more things and get the credit for what you do. You better be associated with some chefs, some operators and chefs, and that's not what they do. God bless them, man. Like, look at the business they've built and look what they've done. They're all over the globe. But when it comes to restaurants, they needed help, and so I think they just recently bought in there. So
Jesus.
Yeah, well,
What? Here's a great question. Also, when is enough enough? We talked to Greg Vernick, and he has a restaurant and a hotel. He has a coffee shop in that hotel. He has his namesake restaurant in Philadelphia, and he gets offers, and he's like, I think we're good, and I think the restraint. When someone keeps throwing you ideas and throwing you this, but he's looking at the economy, he's looking at where we're going to find cooks, where we're going to find people. And the growth doesn't make sense for us because I don't have anyone that I can take from here to put in another place. So I always admired a guy like you. Always had one restaurant. You're always there.
Yeah.
You go to Spiaggia, like Tony's there. He comes by the table like the fucking Godfather. It's like, oh my God, everybody's enamored. He's like, tells funny stories, a couple of little jokes, one-liners. Like, you're such a presence in the dining room that. Why don't you have 30 restaurants? Because you could easily have that.
You know what? I've been married for 40 years, and personal relationships are really important to me, and I won't sacrifice that. I have a great relationship with our son who just got married. Family is really important to me, and I don't really want to be on an airplane a whole lot. So I chose quality of life. I find that sometimes I get a little bored. Sometimes I get itchy. I want to do more.
Right, you should start a podcast.
So I think that's it. Really, just quality of life. I'm not someone who wants to have 30 restaurants.
Right.
Like, people say to me all the time in Yolan, like, guests, like, so great that you're here in Nashville. Like, you guys, how's things in Chicago? You guys, how much time do you spend here? I'm like, no, you don't understand. I live here.
Yeah.
Kathy and I live here. Right. We're here all the time. And they still don't, because the concept of a chef, there's many of them here that have restaurants that don't live here, right? So they assume that I don't live here. And
I feel like Nashville doesn't like that, though.
They don't.
They love to know that they're going to go there and the owner or the chef is going to be there and they have direct access.
I agree with you.
Yeah.
I agree.
Which I really appreciate,
And I don't want that life. I don't want a restaurant that has my name on it that I'm never there or I'm there once a quarter. It's, I don't know. It's just not fulfilling at all. So, we're here. We live here. You'll see us every time because we're here. Like Manit came in the other night. She goes, we see you here a lot. You live in, I'm like, Monique, come on. Like, we live, but she's so busy. She's sweet, really sweet. Yeah.
What's next, man?
Well, we're doing a trip with Jeff.
Yeah. I saw that. Yeah, right.
We're going.
Right. You're going to have to do a trip with Jeff soon.
Oh, yeah. So we're going to Friuli and Slovenia, which I've never been to Slovenia before. So we'll do that. Last year was a crazy year. Last year, our son Carlo got married in Tuscany.
I saw that, yeah.
So you're talking about one trip that was just run around trying to find a venue. Then another trip to go taste the caterer and listen to get the band signed up.
Jesus Christ.
And then another trip to for the actual wedding. So there was a lot.
Planning a wedding in a foreign country, not foreign, but
you know what?
It's got to be tough. Right?
Here's the first thing you got to do if you actually decide to do that is you have to be super comfortable with the people running the venue. And when we found this venue in like 25 minutes outside of Florence called Villa Corsini, the event planner was like I mean, you've worked with a lot of event planners, and she was incredible. Like, she took care of so much shit, and it made it really easy. And she was very communicative, and a lot of emails, a lot of WhatsApp, and so that's it. If you want to do it right, find the right venue with the right event planner, and it'll probably be pretty smooth. Like, we had no idea, like, I don't know how many people are going to show up to a wedding in Tuscany. I don't know, maybe 40, 50. And Carlo and his wife, Cerise, were like, no, we're going to have 100 people. I'm like, there's no way you're going to have 100 people. And then, of course, 100 people showed up. Great. And I said, so you were ready? He goes,
I was going to say no to that.
No.
I'd readily make myself available over that.
And what was really great was everyone flew to Rome, and we spent like 4 or 5 days. Missy and Joe were both there. I
saw that, yeah.
And all the years of talking of the three of us hanging out in Rome finally came to fruition, which was really cool. But then after, I don't know, everyone got there, and we were there for 4 or 5 days, we had to get to Florence. So Kathy basically rented out an entire coach car on a train, and 45 of us met the other 45 people that were there, and went to Florence. That was really great because we spent so much time together with so many people, family, friends. Got to know Carlo and Cerise's friends. They weren't going anywhere. It wasn't one night, a wedding, boom, you're out. Yeah. It's like you spent a lot of time with people, and it was an incredibly fun trip.
That sounds great.
Yeah. So I don't know if quite I answered your question or not, but what's next?
What's next?
We're opening a cocktail bar.
I saw that, yeah.
And it's going to be called Four Walls, and it's named after a sort of a famous song by a country artist named Jim Reeves, and it's the only country influenced place we're doing in the hotel, and even it's not going to be like this, like honky tonk, but I gotta go to Lower Broadway. Shit.
Right. You and I should do some research and development along Broadway. I'll point you in the right direction.
Yeah, sure. Let's do it on a Friday night. Yeah. So we're gonna do that, and that's sort of a big deal. Kathy and I are partners with the developer and not the hotel management company or Marriott or any of that. So we work for them, and they want to. They have property in there. They want to build a second hotel, so a lot more casual. I think we talked about this, like a pasta bar, and so that's still happening, but there's still not a shovel in the ground. So 3 years, I don't know, to build a hotel from scratch.
I wouldn't even know.
I don't know. Yeah, I think the best of my guessing ability. So yeah, that and travel, and we have dual citizenship, so we're actively pursuing finding a place to live in Florence. Not full time, but if we could spend 2-3 months a year living in Florence, I think that's definitely a goal. I mean, still have a lot of energy. Like people look at me like, so is this your last rodeo? I'm like, don't fucking insult me, man.
Yeah,
like
right?
Ageism is a thing, So
right.
no, I mean, I want to do more. I want to do more. Yeah. So, and we both want to do more. We want to write a book.
Should.
Like, we've written 2 books, right? But I think we have a story, like our adventures and the things like, much like you. You should write it. You ever think about writing a book?
Yeah, so I have. So the idea for the book that I wanted to write was that whole time that I was traveling, like really dive into details of why I was doing it, where my brain was.
Yeah.
You know, I was like a broken person, and each chapter was either a country that I was in or a restaurant that I worked at. How that chef or restaurant kind of helped me get my mojo back, or the conversations that we had, and then like 3 or 4 or 5 recipes of things that I learned in that country, just my interpretation of it. And I think it's like 10 chapters probably. I think it's
you should do it. I don't know of anyone else more capable of writing that story than you.
Yeah.
I mean, who else has that experience?
Right. Yeah.
How far along are you on it?
I mean, I kept really meticulous notes from when I was traveling. I have a lot of like audio things where I'd be on a train, I'd just be like doing it, and I kept notes, and I have it. I never wrote a book before, so I don't know the process of that. It seems daunting.
You need a writer.
Yeah, I need a writer.
You need, number one, you need a writer who can make it their job.
And tell the story. Yeah.
And tell the story and take your notes, and you can talk to you, because you don't have time. You have time to write?
No. I don't have any time to write.
Who does? So find a writer, you give them whatever percentage, whatever fee that they want, and write a book proposal, which they'll help you write, and then they go shopping. You get an agent, and they shop it around.
That's that easy.
Yeah,
no problem.
Yeah. It's all good. It's and what it does, what writing a book does, is it opens a lot of doors, and it keeps you in the public eye, right? It keeps you in the discussion, and you're about to open a restaurant, like the more the better, right?
I agree.
But you won't need it until next year. Right. It takes a year to write a book.
We have a podcast, so
that's the new book.
Man, it's really amazing. I feel like I could just talk to you forever.
Me too.
I feel like we're going to have you as a recurring guest. I love that you're in Nashville, because it reminds me of Chicago a lot, and it doesn't just remind me of Chicago. It reminds me of like the 90s, being a young cook. I remember when I worked at Mango, we could count all of the restaurants we wanted to eat at on one hand.
Right.
Savarin, Le Titi, Trotters.
Yeah.
Spiaggia was always on that list. The Four Seasons with Mark Baker, the Ritz-Carlton, Everest.
Yeah.
There wasn't that many great restaurants, and you were always in my conversations of chefs I ever wanted to work for. It just the timing never really worked out. I'm glad that we're friends, and like I said, I'm really happy that you're in Nashville, because there is a sense, every time I see you, there's a sense of like comforting welcomeness, and it reminds me a lot of Chicago, which is a great feeling.
I would agree with that. Thank you. I feel the same about, I could talk to you all afternoon as well. Yeah. And it's Nashville does remind me of when you said the 90s. I'll go back even further in the 80s. Like, there were cranes in the sky everywhere in Chicago. And this sort of feels like this. This is like, you have Nashville. Nashville is known for whatever. And now you have this luxury part of Nashville, or this little more sophisticated is not the right word, but it's up a notch now. Like our hotel, the Four Seasons, the Ritz-Carlton's coming. All these luxury brands that didn't exist in Nashville, that people don't think of as Nashville, are happening. So there's plenty of room, I think. I'm really excited to eat at Iggy's.
Thank you.
I've heard of this place that's about to open, right?
It's not an Italian restaurant, so don't come in.
Make me risotto, goddammit. What is it? What is Iggy's?
Okay, so,
here's the elevator pitch.
Yeah. The elevator pitch is an Italian restaurant. That's to get people in the door.
There you go.
What it is, you cook Italian food, okay? I make flavored noodles. I'm actually embarrassed to say that I do this in front of you. There are very traditional Italian things that I do that I think I think I make a really great tomato vodka sauce. The bolognese sauce I make is great. My arrabbiata sauce is really good, which I parlay that into puttanesca sauce. Yeah. So there are some. When I was young, first starting out, I worked at a country club in Midlothian, and the chef there his name was Tom Gratishire. He was the chef at what was that place on Wells Street? It was a little mouse, Topo Gigio. He was the chef at Topo Gigio. So he taught me these Italian things that I was doing at a country club, and I didn't even realize what they were. But some of them are like really good red sauce Italian. He taught me like the linguine and clam, how to like open a clam and clean it really well, and take that juice and make the butter sauce.
Yeah.
So there's all these like crazy Italian things, and I was on this Italian road to go work in Italy and travel Italy, and then I went to Mango, and I got introduced to all these French techniques and all these French terms, and these kids from Kendall that looked down on me because I never went to culinary school, and I was like, oh shit. And Steve was very much French cuisine, the Ritz Carlton and Gutierrez and French, and I was like, oh fuck, if I want to ever become something, I need to like keep doing French cuisine. And I was always enamored with like Spiaggia, and even when like Paul was there, I was like, oh, to Spiaggia, and I ate there, it was fucking amazing. And then when John Bonchet took over La Francais again, I was like, oh, this is like an opportunity. Like, I can't pass this up. And then they're the French Laundry, and I just dove myself into French cuisine. And I never, every time I made a staff meal, it was always these Italian things that I made. Everybody loved it. It was amazing. But I never, like, I don't know why. And, like, you can always look back at your life and be like, why did I do this? But I never really considered cooking Italian food professionally. It was always something that I made at home, or I made for staff meal, or I liked to do. And in hindsight, and here I am opening a fucking Italian restaurant, because deep down inside me, I love cooking Italian food. And I think pasta is just like, it's such a vehicle for creativity and sauce and flavors. And, it's different pastas, hold sauce differently. And it's fun learning about all these different shapes. So if you're asking what Iggy's is it's just a celebration of like pasta and these little vessels and catalysts to like put flavor on top of and have great textures. And some of the things that I'm making are like really Japanese, man. It's like this Italian Japanese kind of thing. But then I'm really trying to pull it back to just cooking delicious food. No matter what you do, like I've really shed, I feel like I've grown up a lot, and I've really shed this kind of like trying to reinvent the wheel and trying to blow people's minds and trying to be different and trying to be creative. And I just want to cook really delicious food.
That's it.
And if that's a plate of bolagnese and a crostini and a crudo, then that's what it is, man.
Yeah.
And people are going to eat it and they're going to say, this is fucking great.
Yeah.
Is hamachi with olive oil and lemon the most creative thing on the face of the earth? No, but that's what I want to eat when I go out.
Right. That's
and if I think that that's what I want to eat, there's got to be more people than me thinking that also.
There is.
And that's where I'm at in my life, is I just want to cook delicious food. And if it's Japanese, it's a little Japanese influence where I'm using yuzu instead of lemon, then fucking so be it, man.
Right.
So,
how's the menu done? Are you happy with where it's at?
It's a small restaurant and it's a smaller menu.
Yeah.
And it's a small crew. I just have 3 line cooks at night. So it's probably going to be like 13 items on the menu. And I have more than 13 ideas. So it's really trying to like slide in those slots of like, have some things that are out of the box and have some staples and have some super delicious, comforting things. And I keep putting things in and out. And I just need to hand it all over to Matthew and be like, okay, here's 5 menus. And I think they're all great. Which one do you like the most? And whatever he picks, and that's what we're going to go with. But the menus is pretty much there, and it's fun.
And
it's a lot of me.
Matthew will do the wine as well.
Yeah, he's going to do all the wines. He wants to do Amaro spritzers on the patio, and this is what I'm thinking of this. And people love to drink spritzers, and we're going to play this music, and I'm going to get all these wines from Fulia and
cool.
blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, fucking go for it, man.
Yeah.
I'm not going to stop you.
No.
Classic cocktails. Classic cocktails and spritzer menu. That's what he wants to do. And if somebody wants something, you want a margarita? Yeah, we could totally make that for you. But we're not going to have smoke infused. It's like, I think he's also at a point where he just wants people to come in and have a good time and come back.
Yeah.
And that's where we're at.
It's things that like that will work, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like you're cooking from your heart.
You can't go wrong.
And people notice that when it's on the plate.
Yes.
So,
right on.
I mean, what's, in your opinion, what's the craziest, this is going in a different direction, but what is the craziest thing you've seen in a restaurant in Nashville? I have my answer, so I'll let you ponder on that a bit.
Oh, Jesus, man. I don't...
Anything from food to vehicle to... Because there's some crazy shit.
Yeah, I don't know. Great question. I don't know.
So I was recently introduced to something called a shambong. Have you heard of this? You guys heard of this before, right? Have you heard of it?
No.
It's fucking crazy. It's like the bachelorette's party staple, and it's a bong that you basically pour champagne. And I don't know if I'm describing it correctly, but it's basically...
I think you pretty much hit it on the head, yeah, right?
I'm like, who? Why?
Why? Why not?
What?
Why? Because we fucking can. That's why. Because we fucking can.
That's it. That's it.
I think we got to end it on that note.
There you
Tony,
go.
if we want to find you at Yolan, where do we go? What's your Instagrams? How do people get a hold of you?
It's just at Tony Mantuano on Instagram. Yolan's at the corner of KVB and 4th, and we have a rooftop bar, Denim, which I know you've been
Denim's
to.
Great. Yep.
And then we're also going to open a cocktail bar in the coming months called Four Walls, and pretty much you can find me on the corner of 4th and KVB just about any day.
There you go, man.
Yeah.
Hanging out. Thanks so much for sitting down, man. It's great talking to you.
Great talking to
Awesome.
you too.
Thank you.
Yep.
Yeah, good stuff.
Easy.